is your marriage going to look like this year? Will you continue to be frustrated at the cycles that keep repeating? Will the disconnect between the two of you keep growing? Or will you do something different and get the help that you need to create your extraordinary marriage? It's time to break the ineffective cycles and build connection. Apply for coaching today at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/coaching.
From Naples, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex is taking the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DeLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Alisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663, or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In this episode, we're talking about the struggles that some wives, including Alisa, have when it comes to giving oral sex.
There's an anonymous quote that says, "Don't be afraid to try new things. They aren't all going to work out, but when you find the one that does, you're going to be so proud of yourself for trying." We're going to talk about that in regard to today's episode, but first we start every episode with a hug. And a hug is really an opportunity for us to celebrate you, to celebrate the effort, the transformation that's occurring in your marriages. And this hug comes from an email we received that started off with, "First, I want to say thank you for truly speaking into Christian marriages. We have always put effort into making our marriage to making it good. A few years ago, my husband suggested I listen to your podcast. He would listen on and off and would suggest ones to me. I would listen, but wasn't fully invested. We bought the book 7-Day Sex Challenge, and we did it a few years ago."
Right on.
For those of you that don't know, we did it
Congratulations.
is when you've completed a sex challenge, however the two of you have defined that.
Yep. And length.
She goes on to say, "Still, we weren't living the intimacy lifestyle intentionally. On May 5th last year, we went to your one conference in Naperville, Illinois. That night, things shifted.
Wow.
We decided to do a 30-day sex challenge and start the 6 Pillars of Intimacy book. We finished the study, but the sex challenge continued. We decided it was a 1-year sex challenge. It just ended, and we have a plan for the intimacy lifestyle."
Wow.
We did it. 237 days in 1 year. To say it has changed our marriage is an understatement. We have been able to communicate better and continue to work in this area. We've shared your books, podcasts, etc. with newly married couples, seasoned couples, and even my parents. The other thing I'm committed to doing is catching up on your podcast. I started at number 1 a year ago, and I am on number 523. I'm hoping to be caught up in the next year. Thank you for all you do. We love you."
Wow. My goodness. 237 days.
Well, first of all, a shout out to Calvary.
Calvary Church.
They're the ones that hosted that event last May, where this couple was, kind of got their world rocked.
Yeah.
And decided to take some pretty, just to get intentional. Right? Be intentional and take action. And that's what they did. And
all I'm going to say is congratulations to all of you who have gone out and done radical things, like literally radical. People in this world don't even understand it. Why would you do that? Why would you have sex 237 days? I give you a lot of credit because Alisa and I haven't done that. But why would you do that? Why would you get radical in your marriage? Because you can have the extraordinary marriage, because things can shift, because things can move in a different direction. That's why we do stuff like this. It's not just about the sex. I bet you if you were to ask any couple who's done something like this, and this couple in particular, it wasn't just about the sex. There's so much more. Again, 237 days, kudos to you. My goodness, that's
roughly 20 days a month.
That is amazing. And so don't take it from Alisa and I, we did 60 days. That's nothing compared to what some of these couples and this couple has done to radically transform their marriage using the 6 Pillars of Intimacy as the framework to do that. It's amazing. I love it.
Well, and it just goes to show, I think, time and time again, whether it's a hug like this or a couple that used, Connect like you did when you first met, whatever the resource might be, when couples get intentional about their marriage, transformation happens.
Amen.
And I think that's what this hug just kind of emphasizes, and we love being able to celebrate each and every one of you. So if you have not submitted a hug, if you've just gotten intentional about your marriage, we would love to celebrate you and share your breakthrough with the one family, because what happens is that you actually help to unlock somebody else. And that's what keeps the one family so cohesive. So send your hug in.
And last thing, again, thank you to Calvary Church. Thank you for a pastor and a leadership team who's willing to go after it, to save marriages, to impact marriages. So thank you so much. If you're a pastor, you're a leader, reach out. We'd love to come to your community, because it's not just about the sex. I'm telling you, it's not. Much more happens in those times.
Absolutely. Well, as Tony mentioned at the top of this episode, we're talking about the struggles that some wives, including myself, have with giving oral sex to our husband. And
let's talk about that.
That was a little.
Let's talk about that.
The actual nudge for this particular episode came from an email that Tony received from a husband that read in part, "Hey, can you guys do an episode on how Alisa overcame her hangups from the past with oral sex?" I remember an episode where she touched on it, but I don't remember, if there was a specific action plan she used. And he goes on to say, "My wife will bring it up, but she never pursues it, and it's frustrating. She says she wants to be able to do it, but then nothing happens. And I get frustrated thinking, why are we even talking about it? Because it's not going to happen." And even though that was an email that Tony received, Tony could have actually written that email.
And it's something I've heard from many husbands at events. I've been, talking to guys in different, places, and this will come up. And it is one of those things where more husbands than not are frustrated when it comes to being given oral sex, aka a blowjob, than giving it. Like, more times than not, husband is excited, even in our marriage. And I will say this is a dynamic that Alisa and I have faced. Husband is excited to give his wife oral. She is more than willing to receive it, loves it, enjoys it. And yet when that gets turned around, the husband's like, but when I ask for it, it's sort of like, maybe next time, not right now. And it can be a bit dejecting, and it can be a rejection. Even, this is something that Alisa and I, as she said, can still sit in and go like, can be a thing in our own marriage.
And I just want to acknowledge, when we even posted on Instagram last week, a lot of you wives, this is not an issue for you. So we're not saying it is an issue in every marriage.
Right.
We know, there were a lot of wives, a lot of husbands that responded to that question last week and are like, nah, this is not a problem for us. So,
oh yeah, some of them were just like, I love giving it to them. And and husbands, there were some husbands who were like, oh my gosh, my wife just all the time is going. And I'm thinking, wow. So again, not everybody.
Yeah.
We understand there are different dynamics, and there may even be seasons in a marriage where it's like, right now, it's like, man, this is game on. But I could talk to you 6 months from now, a year from now, and you're like, yeah, what used to happen isn't happening now.
Correct.
So let's all remember, we're all in different places, stages, seasons.
And, for me, I will, Tony just shared it, but I will own it. It's definitely, oral sex is definitely a much more one-sided. I am typically the receiver than the giver. Although I will say, over the last little bit, and I can't quantify what the last little bit is, I have gotten slightly more comfortable giving, not initiating the giving, but giving. There's a difference.
This is, yes, I will accept that, and that is truth.
I won't necessarily initiate it, but if requested, not always, but it is, I have a higher willingness than I did in the very early years of our marriage, where I was like, that's a heck to the no. And a little bit about my own story. Going to college, I was very naive. I had led a very sheltered life, just strict parents. Did not date in high school, none of that stuff. I went to college, got a little wild and crazy, definitely had way more alcohol than I should have, and found myself in some situations that were very compromising, that I had no business being in. And yes, they did involve men and their penises. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But there were situations that definitely had an impact on me emotionally in regard to how I would, carry some of that baggage into my marriage. And that is not a judgment call on anybody that's done it. It's just my transparency with all of you, that I didn't know what I didn't know going into college. And I didn't, and this is just a side note, this is part of the reason why the more comfortable the two of you get talking about sexual intimacy and are able to talk to your kids about sexual intimacy, you can actually maybe not prevent things, but set them up with knowledge so that when they find themselves in situations, they can make different decisions. Because I will tell you, the conversations that I've had with our kids are way different in preparation for them going to college than the conversations that I never received from my own parents. So that's just a little side note on getting comfortable with sexual intimacy. And I will say that, part of it too, so you mix in the alcohol and you have all of those crazy things. And then there were times, and I think there are probably a lot of wives too, a lot of women who can attest that somewhere over their sexual history, whether that's with their husband, pre-marriage, whatever it is, that there have been times when she has felt like a man has not responded to what she is saying or heard her when she didn't want to do something. And so you get into this position where you're like, okay, well, it's like if I say stop, is he going to stop? Like, what is this? And it's a very vulnerable, performing oral sex on a man is a very vulnerable position for a woman to be in. Right. And so if she's not confident that that's going to happen, that can also impact her as far as her willingness to be like, okay, well, if I don't want you to ejaculate in my mouth, are you going to? Is that something I have to be concerned about, that you're going to surprise me? And then I'm like, whoa, what the heck is that? Right? Like I wasn't expecting it. And it's interesting because I asked the question last week on Instagram. I said, when it comes to giving your husband oral sex, what's your biggest challenge, or what keeps you from doing it? And there were a lot of different responses. Some husbands, I'm going to tell you have absolutely no control over. You can't do any, like when a wife says texture, you can't do anything about the texture of your penis. That is what it is. You have a very...
Is it texture of the penis or texture of if he ejaculates in her mouth and the semen texture?
I will say there was not a specificity on that.
Okay.
So it could be both. It could be one or the other. Others said there was no feedback from him on what feels good. So if you aren't telling her what's working or not, and she's just like, well, I'm down. I mean, it's kind of like, ladies, it's kind of like when we're receiving it. Like, he won't keep doing it if he doesn't know if it's working for us.
And we've done numerous episodes about sharing your gratification.
Vocalization,
feedback. We've had a number of episodes around that during foreplay, and it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be oral, but this is something that each of us, both husband and wife, can work on in different ways and in different times during our sexual intimate moments.
Absolutely.
And I can understand that because from my side, and just sort of inputting, putting my input in here, there are times when this is also going on, and
100%.
it's like, Alisa, give me some feedback here, honey. Like, I know you're enjoying this. Give me some feedback, so I could understand from a wife's perspective, being like, I'm going after this, and there's no feedback. You're just sort of sitting there, like, I don't know, just what's that old, like,
lump on a log?
A lump on a log? No,
is that the expression you're looking for?
Yeah, but is it a lump on a log?
Yeah.
Okay, like a lump on a log then, and you're just like, there's nothing going on, so I don't know if this is pleasing to you.
Right.
And I can't stress the importance of allowing your spouse to hear and know that what they're doing and what you're receiving is like giving you enjoyment. And that goes both ways. And that's something Alisa and I have talked about. So
there were other comments that said, I don't always like the taste of his semen.
True.
Straight up.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you've said that to me. You're like, hey, I'll do this, but do not, like,
don't ejaculate.
Don't do that in my mouth. No.
Yeah. Smell.
That's something, guys, I have heard, and I think we've shared numerous times.
Talk about it a little bit here, too.
But that's a big one.
Other wives have said, because he doesn't do it for me. And so that,
that becomes a tit for tat. And so that's like me going to, like, okay, well, Alisa doesn't give me a blowjob, so I'm not going to do oral sex for you. But as your husband, I still want to give you pleasure. And I would hope as my wife, you would still want to give me pleasure. So that can be a very touchy place. I just like,
and I think it likely goes deeper of what else is going on in the marriage.
Sure, there's definitely layers to what's happening here. Absolutely.
Another response was an incredibly sensitive gag reflex.
Yeah.
I hear you on that. Like,
yeah.
Why is that so funny?
Because some of these are just spot on, like what we have gone through and have addressed.
Right.
And still are.
And still are.
Okay.
Right. I don't like having any pre-ejaculate or semen in my mouth. And I think that, I think there are a lot of women that falls into. And it was interesting as I was preparing for this episode. I was like, okay, are there any stats on this? Like, I need to get outside the one family and just understand, like, what is the, can I find information on the appeal of receiving oral sex versus giving oral sex and that type of thing? And there was actually in 2015, there was the Sexual Exploration in America study. And we'll link to it. A team of sex researchers asked 975 men and 1,046 women how much they enjoyed partaking in various sexual activities. There were actually 50 sexual activities that are included in this study. But so I'm looking over this and I'm trying to gather all this information. There was a lot of information in the study. But there were two lines that were very, very interesting to me. And it was the two lines that asked the question, how appealing is it to receive oral sex? And then the line right below that was, how appealing is it to give oral sex?
So husbands receiving, wives giving.
Right. Well, I mean, it actually had for both men and women, but
Yes.
for the purpose of this particular episode, I was very interested to know how many men find receiving oral sex very appealing and how many women find it very appealing to give oral sex. Okay. So those were the only two boxes on this entire, it was, I forget.
Pages.
There were pages. So listen up. 60.5% of men find receiving oral sex very appealing.
It's a big stat. 6 in 10.
Whereas only 21.3% of women find it very appealing to give oral sex. That's a difference of 39.2%. In case math is not, just something you're quick on. That's a big difference.
It is.
Look at
It is.
Tony's trying to breathe right now.
No, it is, and I understand the study, and yet, again, we don't know if these people are married. We don't know the longevity of that. So there's a number of things we can look at here. But in a marriage, and if we're going to go from a marriage standpoint, how do those numbers begin to shift? And knowing that the two shall become one, how is it that we work together as a team to strengthen our sexual intimacy around oral sex? And specifically on how that looks for wives giving their husbands oral. So that's like, and I hear the difference in all of this sort of thing, but this can lay a very different picture for those of us who are married, who are wanting extraordinary marriages, and who are trying to strengthen our sexual intimacy pillar. So if we go by these numbers, it can become very easy to just sit in my little pocket here and go, well, got it. You're one of the 6 in 10. Well, I'm one of the
2 in 10.
No, I'm one of the 8 in 10 who doesn't. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't get us any closer to working on our sexual intimacy pillar. I think it would almost divide us more. And instead, I think we wanted to look at how can we help you as a couple and even ourselves. Like this is a conversation with Alisa and I. How can we look at this so it doesn't become a frustration in our marriage and around our sexual intimacy?
Well, let's talk about how to do that after this break. If you've been a listener of this show for any length of time, you know sleep is something we've struggled with. Whether it's my insomnia or the pain in Tony's shoulder, there have been lots of sleepless nights in our bedroom. Now, thanks to our Helix memory foam mattress topper, we are both sleeping so well. It's nice to wake up and actually feel like it's a good morning. Helix offers a range of specialized 3-inch toppers to meet your unique sleep preference. Our favorite is the luxury foam. Go to helixsleep.com/one for 27% off site-wide plus free bedding bundle. That's a sheet set and mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. That's exclusive for listeners of the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. That's helixsleep.com/one for 27% off site-wide plus the free bedding bundle, the sheet set, and the mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. helixsleep.com/one. And if you get a post-checkout survey, please let them know One Extraordinary Marriage sent you. Lately, we found ourselves at a place where it's easy to set health goals, but without a plan, it's hard to make them a reality. What do I eat? How do I get the results I want? That's where Prolon comes in. Its 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. I love how the Next Gen 5-day program makes it so easy for me. I don't have to think, I just eat with everything prepackaged and ready to go. Each order of Prolon's 5-day program comes with 5 boxes labeled by day so you know exactly what to eat each day. The planning's done, so I stay out of the kitchen and away from other foods. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering One Extraordinary Marriage Show listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/marriage. That's PROLONLIFE.com/marriage to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/marriage. We're back, and we are having this conversation around oral sex, with wives giving oral sex to their husbands. And, as Tony just pointed out, that statistic, on the surface just kind of highlights the differences, but in a marriage setting, that could easily become that's just the way it is. You got to accept me. I'm one of the 8 and 10 that doesn't want to, or, I'm going to be frustrated because I'm one of the 6 and 10 guys that do want it. And we're going to have this chasm instead of going, okay, well, is there a way to bridge this? Right? It was kind of that email that became the catalyst for this whole episode. Can we talk about, are there steps that a couple can take? Let me be real clear. This isn't just about a woman getting over her hangups or just having to push through or having to give her husband oral sex anytime he wants it. Let me be real clear. That is not where we're going in this episode.
No. And I think that goes the same for a husband giving his wife oral sex. Mm-hmm. It's not just like in our marriage. It's not just like, well, Elisa's like, hey, I want oral sex. And there have been times when she said it, and I'm just like, I'm not interested tonight. And it's not like, well, you need to give it to me. It's like, no, I'm not. So this isn't a, right. What Alisa said, I'm spot on with.
Yeah, it's not a you have to. It's a, can this conversation and can there be actions that perhaps increase the confidence, maybe the comfortability, and maybe even the frequency of a wife giving a husband oral sex. And let me tell you, if your wife has got any, like me, if your wife has any one of those resistances, whether it's texture or doesn't like to taste semen or smell or whatever, that's part of the conversation, right? We've got to start with, hey, why has this been a challenge? And I'll tell you, in the past, for me, I'm not going to lie, personal hygiene and grooming were one of the things that I was just like, yeah, I am not interested down there. You're smelly. There's a lot of hair. I'm not interested in that. Why are you looking at me like this?
Well, because I think there have been times when I have been, I do clean and make sure I'm all good. And
all right, hold on a second.
So
that's not like a carte blanche. If you do it, it's an automatic go.
I understand that, but it should increase the probability of that happening.
That's why we're having this conversation.
I absolutely agree with you on that.
But it's not just hygiene. But hygiene's a great place to start.
Okay, so can we take it one step back, though?
Sure.
Before we hit this, I do think we need to touch on past experiences a little bit, because you've even said it. You were in some situations way before you met me.
Yes.
You were in some compromising situations. When we first met, when we first got together, I can't recall any a time, and you can remind me if I'm wrong here, but I cannot recall any a time that I ever asked for oral sex and force you or forcibly made you do that to me when we were dating or even our early years of marriage or anything like that.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss something from many years ago when we were dumb, and you guys know our story. Well before we were followers of Jesus, we were doing our own thing, and so we did have premarital sex. We were drinking. I was doing drugs even at the time. So I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't something I forgot in that moment. So I think this is where frustration can come in for me, maybe for other husbands. I never did that to you. Mm-hmm. I never forcibly made you give me oral sex. And yet...
You're paying the price.
I am.
Yeah.
And I have. For something that I never did to you. And I've always respected you. Even when we've had these conversations. And you talked about the hygiene and I didn't realize that. And so that's where like our whole manscaping episode came up and around. Making sure like, hey, I'm going to wipe down. I'm going to do that sort of stuff. And yet there's still, you brought it up just at the beginning here, like there's still I was in compromising positions well before I met Tony. Tony had nothing ever to do with it. And so that's a tough place as a husband because I'm like, well, what do I say? What do I do? And I know you enjoy it once you get into it because it's just the same with me, even like giving you oral sex. Sometimes I'm like, all right, like, where are we going? And it's like, you're sort of, so you see what I'm saying? So I think there's the same thing, but for myself, I'm like, and I'm glad you confirmed it because I wanted to make sure, but I've never done that to you.
Right.
I never put you in that position. I've always wanted you to have a stellar experience doing that to me. And yet, if I were to just say, hey, Alisa, like, give me oral sex, you'd probably just be like, and laugh and like walk away.
I'm laughing right now.
I know, because
that's
what
you did it right in the middle of an episode. I'm like, okay, like that's just so interesting. And not that it makes it right, but I think that there are a lot of women out there like myself who have been in situations, and when there has been, and I'm going to use sexual trauma with a little t.
Okay.
It can be sexual trauma with a big T, but
absolutely,
in my case, little t. Situations that were compromising, not anything where, anyway, we'll just leave it at that. Those memories.
There wasn't sexual assault or anything
correct.
Of that nature.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're trying to get to.
Those memories are seared into your brain. And that's not your fault, but working through that and not having those flashbacks. And it's also not just.
But hold on. So I know, and I got to just chime in here real quick. But that's like saying my pornography addiction, those images are no longer seared in my brain. And I could have the same response like, well, those images are still in my brain, so I see those pornographic images of women, and so now I'm putting that upon you, and so that could still impact our sexual intimacy. Those images are no longer...
Let me correct the word choice. It's actually the emotions and the feelings that come in with that. It's not the imaging. It's I felt this way doing that act.
Got it.
Outside of
so
whether
it's a
physiological response,
okay.
not a flash of, oh, I did this thing and this is what it looked like. It's more like, oh, that did not feel good. Oh, I was in a place that I felt unsafe, uncomfortable, unheard, whatever it might be. So I used the wrong word.
No, and that's fine. I'm glad we cleared that up. Okay, but now, all right. So you are you're in a safe environment now. Mm-hmm. So. How do we rectify that? Because that's the piece where I'm going, this happened how many years ago now?
Oh, okay. Can we also address the fact that that's not the only factor?
Okay.
Right? Because like if you looked at the list of responses that wives gave, mm-hmm. right? And actually none of them said anything about their past. That is one that I would have added in all honesty. I was actually surprised that there weren't any responses that said past sexual experiences. Which
I'm sure there are others for sure.
Like, yeah, I'm not saying I'm the only one. I'm just saying it didn't come up in the responses. Right. So you have your past sexual responses. You have your past religious upbringing, which if you were raised in a faith tradition that made sex dirty, and by that I mean the good girls don't do that. Mm-hmm. Sex is bad. You know, all of the messaging that came with don't have sex before marriage, and then suddenly you're supposed to be sexual. So that's a whole nother conversation for another day. You also, like, I was raised that way. I was raised in the Catholic Church. I was raised with, sex is dirty. Good girls don't do anything. And then you don't find yourself. You choose to be in these situations where you are doing these acts, and you have the religious guilt that comes on top of that. Then you also have the things like, I don't know if I like this. There are things about texture and smell and taste and all of those things. And so you put it together, and it's not just what happened, 30 plus years ago. It's not just what that messaging has been in regard to sexual upbringing, because I've worked through like all the religious messages. I'm pretty sure Song of Solomon is, still scripture. And so it's in there. And yes, I know oral sex.
It is scripture.
Oral sex is in the Song of Solomon. Read it. I actually think
between a husband and wife.
Between a husband and wife.
Yeah.
So there is this navigation, and it is also working through your own. For me personally, it is a texture thing. There is a gag reflex thing that happens, and that is still something that I have to work through. It's not just you know what? You've done your emotional healing, and you've gotten over your religious stuff, and your husband grooms himself, and so now it should just be like, hey, if he's naked, do it. I'm sure you would love that.
Not all the time, no.
A higher percentage than now. And so it is a journey. And this is one that, guys, it's kind of like kissing. It's one that pushes me out of my comfort zone. It's kind of why I found that quote that opened us up today that said, don't be afraid to try new things. They aren't all going to work, but when you find the one that does, you're going to be so proud of yourself for trying. Besides the grooming, wives, you may have to find a different orientation with your husband that is actually more appealing to you. So if he's laying down, your face front, like, you figure out, like, change your body orientation. I'm not going to try and describe it here on a podcast.
I will say this, possibly picking up like a Liberator wedge ramp combo could be something that could help, and that can go both ways. But I do know for us, there have been some instances where we have found ourselves in a position that is more gratifying for you giving and for me receiving. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Change your orientation. I don't know how you all get into whatever position you get into, but change it. See if it works better. Think about things like, getting pillows under her knees or things like that. If they're, like Tony said, the Liberator for elevation for the pelvic area. I also want to just talk about the fact that having a penis in your mouth for an extended period of time, most women, our jaws are not used to being in that. It's kind of like when you go to the dentist and they put those whatever those expander things are to keep your jaw open. So and after you're just you feel the ache and it just starts to hurt. That's kind of for me, after a while, that's what oral sex feels like. It feels like I've got those expanders and my jaw just hurts. And so it's even having that conversation to say, hey, I'm going to go for a period of time, but when my jaw gives out, we're done. Right? Being able to communicate that, being able to, and this is a conversation, this part of the conversation, husbands and wives, you absolutely need to have this. Where is she comfortable with you finishing?
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a big one. Because, guys, you may want to ejaculate into your husband's or into your wife's mouth, and she's not down for that. That's a big conversation to have, because she may be avoiding it because she thinks that's what you're going to do because the two of you have never talked about it.
And that's a very different experience than us as a husband giving you an orgasm while we're down on you.
Correct.
It's a very different experience is what you're saying there.
Absolutely. Because if the two of you can have the conversation, if you find out that, like a lot of the wives have said that they don't, the taste of semen pre-ejaculate, like that, if that's not appealing, then it's like, okay, we're going to go straight up to that point, and then I will remove myself from your mouth.
Right.
So that out of respect and out of building trust and building confidence in this act, I'm going to do that so that you don't have to worry.
Right. And then you can always finish up inside or whatever you're going to do there. So, yeah, I understand that. They're yeah. Okay.
It feels like you have more to say there.
No, it's a big conversation.
Uh-huh.
And I think, I think for myself is like, okay, how do I make it enjoyable, fun for you? Like, what are those conversations we need to have next to be like, okay, Alisa, what does that look like for you? And then also, like the one said, like, I don't know if he likes it or not. There's no, and so also, I think even for myself, because it doesn't happen that often, like, am I giving you cues or am I letting you know the enjoyment I'm receiving from that?
I never worry.
Okay, so for you, that's not a big deal.
No.
Okay. Well,
I know you give me enough vocalization that I know that you're enjoying it. So that's not a concern that I have. I do think that's an important factor for couples to discuss. But in our marriage, you are vocal. And so, and I think that is a place where can I say, like, we didn't even say this at the top of the episode, oral sex may not even be something that the two of you engage in. If so, disregard the whole conversation. But if it is something that has been like it was for this couple, maybe a source of frustration, maybe there is a wife out there, like the wife, on the other side of that email that's like, I want to, but I don't know how. Right. And it may just be starting off small. You may just do it for like a little bit, whatever a little bit is for you. And you may try different positions. You may try, if you need like, in terms of lube, you may even just try coconut oil because then you like coconut oil is edible and safe for you and all the things. Like, be careful getting into some of the flavored stuff because I'm just going to put it out there. You could get into like a lot of chemical things and you could have a reaction to it. So, but you may try a lube, the coconut oil, just to make it, smoother or more appealing or softer or what, coconut oil has a lot of different purposes, but start small.
Yeah.
Right. Try it. Try different positions, try pillows, try, don't go to the point where your jaw hurts. Try the conversation. Start somewhere.
And I think the next piece is, though, and I think for you and I love having this conversation, is because I think too much time has passed for us to have this conversation, and having it just opens up new, oh, wow, I didn't know. Oh, okay. So we can continue this conversation onward.
Right.
Are we perfect? No. Are we learning? Yes. Could we look at our sexual intimacy pillar and go, it has cracks in it? Probably. And that's okay, because we never stand here before everybody and go, we are perfect and every single pillar is 100% and everything's working out just hunky-dory. It's like, this is a conversation that Alisa and I have and that you guys can have. And so with that, go out there. If this is where maybe you're here as a husband, as a wife, make sure you come back to one another and talk about it, though. This is the thing that I share so often, and I hear from many a couples. You guys listen, and then it sort of, nothing goes on after that. Take 10 minutes this week and just have a conversation. Go for a walk and talk. Get moving and talk about what it looks like for you, wife, giving your husband oral sex and what that could look like for your marriage. If it's something that is important to each of you. It's a topic that needs to be had or shared. How you go about it, though, is different for all of us. And even for Alisa and I. You heard us, and we'll probably have more conversations around it. So with that, you guys have yourselves a fantastic week. We'll catch you next week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.